Dawnbringer Book 3, Chapter 5, The Luminous Passage. The mountain slope gradually falls away to their left as they continue northeastward, and a wide plain opens out before them, dotted with trees and speckled with shrubs, with rocks littered about as if tossed aside from the mountain peaks above by the hand of some giant in ages past. At this point, as the way opens before them, the company turns full northward, aiming for the Stiheka Mara, which stands ahead, though they are uncertain of how far. Many leagues to the northeast, up in the Teldren range, lies the Garlus Basin and the village of Falstead. But between them are many days of travel, as well as the village of Chrysea, and the slope of the land leading up from Moradoc's steppe to the wooded vales and rough shelves of the highlands. Yet their destination does not lie even that far, nor in that direction. Rather, they look for an opening to the west or the northwest, so that they might find access to the ancient and fabled forest of the Velassi, cradled in the knees of the southernmost of the Teldren Mountains, but cut off from the world both by the great chasm and, if the rumors are true, by mysterious magic that repels all who would seek to enter, or at least to navigate the forest, to a successful end. The air is bitter cold, and autumn leans toward early winter in the regions where the winds sweep off the heights of the mountains to the stretches of land far below. This region is one such place, and though no snow falls, heavy grey clouds scuttle in a hurry to the east, as if fleeing toward the sea, carrying a damp chill from the peaks and allowing only dimmed rays of the sun's light through, and very little of its heat. After so many weeks in the wilderness walking for the vast majority of the day, the travellers are worn and weathered, tired beyond exhaustion, and yet spurred ahead by an energy and desire deeper than exhaustion. And yet each of them in their own way looks forward to some respite, to a time of repose when weary legs can rest, and the dull ache in the lower back can ease itself once again, and calloused feet with raw toes and heels can heal. But even if they find their destination, they do not expect to linger long, as the pressing need of their people drives them ever onward, and the wretched voices of the creatures of darkness call out as if demanding a response. It is the larger part of 2 days before they draw near to the edge of what they seek, and edge it truly is. A great rift in the earth yawns before them, with steep cliffs plummeting straight down into interminable depths below, as if some massive blade wielded by a god cut the earth from mountain to mountain and split it open so that no man could cross. The other side of the gorge is visible, but only dimly, being over a quarter-mile away. A few hardy trees or bushes grow up to the edge of the rift, but otherwise the land is bare, only grass and stone and hard earth.
So the Stiheka Mara is no mere myth,
Rawlane comments.
I did not expect that it was,
Syrian says.
Many have come this far. It is not, in fact, exceedingly out of the way. A manner of days hence, and we would find a village, though this you probably know. It is what lies beyond the rift, on the other side, that is unknown, except in ancient lore, long forgotten, or only remembered in fragments.
Surely some have found a way around the rift.
Rollane offers.
If, that is, they have had reason or curiosity enough to attempt it.
It has been attempted, but I suspect not in centuries. And if the attempt had been successful, I suspect that roads would have been built. No, whatever they found, they did not think it worth sharing, or they did not return from the finding.
That isn't exactly a consoling thought, though I suppose we have had little consolation of such a sort since setting out from our homes.
Rollane scans the distance with his eyes, as if trying to discern the contours of the opposite ridge, if not to spy a way across, at least to get a glimpse of the nature of their destination. Seeing this, Eldarion explains,
It is said that on the far side of this rift lies a great forest, expansive and deep, within which is hidden the ancient civilization of the Velasi, a people remembered now only in weathered pages or archaic song. But I myself believe that they are very much alive, even if their ways are different from our own, and that they have their reasons to uphold their withdrawal from the world. But this does not prevent me from wishing to meet them, even were our desperate quest and the need of our people, not driving us to precisely such a place and such a meeting.
What, then, do you propose we do?
Tiliana asks.
The light works many marvels, but I don't suppose that it shall carry us across furlongs of empty air.
I suspect that this rift is as much a work of the light as the other marvels that we have seen.
Elmarie says.
If we are worthy to gain passage, then I trust we shall.
Worthy?
Asks Eldarion, turning to look at her.
Well, it is not the best word.
She replies.
One can never be worthy of the works of light. I suppose what I mean is that we be found fitting recipients, cooperators, and that our plight and our task be truly sustained by those from whom we have received it.
Yes, but I also get the sense that the light prefers to work in hiddenness, concealing itself in the ordinary, and there implanting itself like a seed, rather than performing marvels before the eyes, or visibly changing the course of events with mighty hand.
If that is true,
Says Rollane,
then our plight must be grave indeed, for many marvels have we seen with waking eyes.
So what then shall we do?
asks Tiliana, turning and looking to the north, along the edge of the rift.
Do we continue in this direction until we come to the feet of the other mountains, in the hopes of their finding the edge of the rift and thus a way across? Or do we follow it southward, though we know that it is hemmed about by steep ridges of stone almost impossible of access?
What she says is true. For only a couple 100 yards southward, from whence they have come, the arms of the mountain reach out like mighty hands, ridged and knuckled, and open in the centre as if to welcome the great rift into its midst. To come to the ending of the rift would require scaling the steep and rough walls of stone and finding the place where the ridge carries the whole way over, rather than leading only to a gaping abyss falling straight from its very height.
It is a hard choice.
Syrian says.
The passage on this southern end is forbidding in the extreme, but I fear that we shall find much the same on the other end. After all, the Stiheka Mara appears supremely fitted to its purpose. We are here only because of our deep need, and not because we bear any particular hope of finding passage where others before us have failed.
Perhaps that is precisely the nature of the redemption that we seek, that some succeed where all others have failed.
Suggests Rollane.
To be bound always by thoughts that others have failed or fallen astray only discourages the heart and burdens its path. Our only way is forward.
That is true.
Elmarie replies, smiling now as well.
But I also think that the redemption we seek can never come through the success of any man or woman, however great that may be. If you forgive the analogy, the rift is just too deep and too wide.
A smile curls on Rollane's lips, and he chuckles.
You couldn't restrain yourself from that one, could you?
I assure you that it was entirely unintentional. It just seemed the most fitting word to use, though I suppose the gaping rift directly before us could have suggested itself to my thought.
So then,
Sirian begins, smiling at the humor of his companions, and yet with eyes betraying deep thought occurring just beneath the surface, a mind caught up in reflection and consideration.
I think we have probably spoken enough, and now must make a decision.
Eldarion, looking out over the rift with the cold breeze blowing in his hair, replies,
We have come from the south, and there was no passage, but I expect it shall be the same northward. Yet I see no other choice. I suggest we travel north along the edge of the rift, to the slope of the other mountains. We may yet find some hint of a way across, or at least the northern mountains may prove easier of access than the southern ones.
And this they do, following along near the edge of the rift for many miles, as the high peaks of the central bulk of the Teldran range draw ever nearer before them. Volstead lies deep in those mountains, and the barrow of Serra Galaptes, both locations where so much has happened both in beauty and in pain. But Eldarion turns his thoughts toward their current course, rather than allowing himself to linger on the past, except insofar as it proffers itself to him in order to illumine the future. Though the winds from the mountains fluctuate in intensity over the coming days, the rift itself remains always silent, without a whistle of sound, almost as if the air blowing down from the mountainous heights is forbidden passage into the great crevice in the air, nor does any arise from within it. It simply is, and feels in a way almost as if it has always been, standing like a mysterious guardian of a location and a way of life that, if exposed to the outside world, would not survive or would be forced to become what it is not. Or perhaps it is simply the boundary of a sanctuary, like the walls of a temple, or the hedge of a garden, or the cage of ribs around the lungs and the heart, where respiration and circulation ceaselessly do their gentle and secret work, unseen by all, and yet more important than those many things that, because more visible, more evident, people often mistake for being more important. At last, after another half a week, they come to a rocky cliff face where the mountains descend to meet the plain, into which the Stiheka Mara plunges, like a split in the very wall of rock worked by some mighty hand.
Perhaps the southern slopes would have been better.
Sirian says simply with a sigh.
Perhaps so.
Rorlane replies.
And yet the rift cannot continue forever. It must come to an end somewhere in these mountains. I only wish we need not expend more time looking for that end.
Eldarion walks up to the steep cliff face and leans against it and closes his eyes, as if this allows him better to think.
Sirian, are there tales of the Velassi ever departing from the forest? And if so, did they cross over the rift or go around it, or have some other means of access?
I wish that I had something more to tell you.
Sirian answers.
But we know almost nothing about them any longer. Whether any of their kind have ever set forth in the wider Telmerian since the creation of the rift, we simply do not know. It is said, however, that our knowledge of the divines, and of many other things besides, originates from this place, like tributaries from some great river or some deep wellspring. Whether that is because they shared with us such knowledge, or because we ourselves take our origin from this place, we do not know.
Such forgetfulness of the past.
Tiliana says,
It surprises me. How can we have forgotten so many things?
Perhaps much of the strife and conflict that we face in our time comes precisely from our forgetfulness of earlier times.
Rorlane says. Then, rubbing his forehead with a pained expression on his face, he adds,
And yet much is far beyond us, and beyond anything our force or foresight could prevent.
Such as the Imperial invasion, and now the invasion of these powers of darkness.
Tiliana suggests.
Precisely.
Suddenly Eldarion opens his eyes and turns back to look at the vertical cliff face, studying it carefully.
Does this wall look to be a natural structure to you?
He asks, though his question is directed to no one in particular. The others look with him, though at first no one speaks in response.
I do think that it is,
Sirian says at last, and yet adds,
though not entirely. It looks almost to have been smoothed, for lack of a better word, smoothed by the art of man.
I thought so as well.
Rawlane agrees.
If that's true, I wonder what purpose it served.
Ponders Tiliana out loud.
Could it not simply be to prevent access to the mountains and to make passing around the Stiheka Mara impossible?
Elmarie asks.
That could be.
Eldarion says.
And yet the rift appears to be wholly the work of forces beyond man. He could never create such a thing by his own power. But this wall, this cliff face, it looks to be both. In other words, it was already found like this, steep and nigh inaccessible. But it is like someone carved upon it after the fact, to make the face even more smooth.
With this, he runs his fingers along the smooth stone, feeling for hints toward the answer to their query.
It is too smooth to be the mere work of nature. Man tends to like straight lines and smooth edges, whereas the work of those forces greater than ourselves delight in the organic, seemingly random, and yet mysteriously harmonious beauty that we see all around us in the works of nature.
If what you say is true,
Rawlane says,
then it is almost like these sculptors in stone found fault with the ruggedness of the cliff face and sought to improve it.
And if they sought to improve it, then it must have been important to them.
Syrian concludes.
Or perhaps their intent was something else entirely.
Tiliana says,
Though I do agree that there is before us something important. Whether it is important to ourselves, I do not know, but I suspect it was important to our ancestors.
But we have not long to dwell on it this day, as the sun has passed the rim of the mountains in the west, and light is quickly fading.
Eldarion says,
What say you to setting up camp here in the shadow of the wall? In the morning perhaps more shall be revealed to us.
All are agreeable to this suggestion, and so they go about building a campfire and setting up a makeshift tent. Then they prepare a spare portion of the remaining meat that they have from hunting, heavily salted for preservation. Elmarie is also able to find some herbs nearby, mirdalane, which grow in every season of the year, both warm and cold, and offer hearty nourishment, often used not only as an ingredient in stews or a garnish of meats, but also as a medicine. She gathers as much of it as she can, without harming the plants.
Oh, Mirdas!
Rawlane exclaims, using the common name, when he sees her return with the cloth of her robe bunched together and overflowing with the herb that she has gathered inside it.
That is very fortunate. All that remains for us is a day or two of meat rations and a large box of salt half empty. This shall help to flavour the meat well, while also enhancing the sustenance. Indeed, I have heard that one can eat Mirdas by itself with surprising effect, though I have never done so myself.
We may have opportunity to try it soon enough,
replies Elmarie. Darkness falls while they all sit around the fire, eating what has been prepared. There is little conversation, as they are all tired, worn from their prolonged journey and anxious, concerned with the obstacles that lie ahead, the most evident being the impassable rift that conceals their destination on the other side. Shortly after dark, the moon shows her pale face over the low horizon in the east, bringing pale light across the darkened landscape and revealing the many shapes and figures that the descent of the sun had hidden from sight. As the moon ascends higher in the sky, the light of her face falls full upon the wall behind them, and something both unexpected and wondrous occurs. Sinuous lines of bluish light, like fibrous threads of the moon's own luminosity, appear on the cliff face, revealing an intricate design of a bridge crossing a chasm with two cities, one on either side, symbolically depicted. The city on the right is massive in stone and wood, imposing but mostly geometric in design, with mountains behind it. The city on the left, cradled in the midst of trees that almost seem to dance with their glowing lines, shows an elegance and fluidity of architecture, the likes of which no one in the company has ever seen. Along the bottom edge of this great design, which stands 30 or 40 yards tall, almost the entire height of the wall itself, are ancient runes inscribed in the same glowing script. They all, amazed at what they see, arise to their feet and turn to study the wall and its intricate design. Eldarion says,
Syrian, would you like to try your hand at reading the inscription?
Your Telmathrana is better than mine.
replies Syrian.
But yes, I would like to try.
Eldarion nods and smiles, and they both look up at the wall, stepping back a bit so that they can take in all the runic characters in their vision without difficulty. Syrian begins,
A gate between two civilizations, sundered by the lusts of men, and yet.
He turns to Eldarion.
What is that word?
Conjoined.
And yet conjoined by the light and the seal. That is seal, correct?
Yes.
Let one who bears the light of the veiled ones or the royal seal step forth, and the way shall be opened.
Syrian concludes, reading all of the letters.
Is that the correct reading?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Replies Eldarion.
I would have read it the same.
And then he repeats the inscription in its entirety, as if turning over every word in his heart and his mind.
A gate between two civilizations, sundered by the lusts of men, and yet conjoined by the light and the seal. Let one who bears the light of the veiled ones or the royal seal step forth.
After this, Eldarion inspects the image again, almost as if trying to piece together the fragments of a puzzle or to sort out the solution to a riddle.
It seems to me that the inscription is meant to be quite obvious. It is only mysterious to us because we have forgotten so much,
he says.
I would say that the light of the veiled ones refers to the Velasi, for Velasi means precisely veiled one.
I agree with that.
Says Syrian.
But what about the royal seal? Do you have any idea to what that refers?
When Rorlain and I were in the barrow of Seragalaptes, the amulet of the ancient king was able to open the sealed door. It was placed in an indentation in the door, and by whatever power, opened it. I wonder if the same kind of reality is present here. Indeed, I wonder if it is precisely the same amulet to which this inscription is referring.
Then he sighs.
Too bad that it was taken from me.
Elmarier, who stands near to the two men, takes a step forward and says to them,
Why don't we get closer? Perhaps there will be something near to the wall itself that could give us an indication.
They nod to her, and the three of them walk to the cliff face until they stand directly beside it. Eldarion runs his hand along the wall, feeling for indentations like he had seen on the door to the barrow. Seeing this, Elmarier and Syrian do likewise.
Do you see that?
Calls Rorlain suddenly from further behind them.
What do you mean?
Eldarion asks, turning back to the camp.
The wall, it's changing.
How so?
Just come look.
And so the three of them return to the camp, turning to look at the glowing designs upon the wall, and they see that a glowing cord, as if of luminescent self-weaving rope, threads across the distance between the two cities directly over the bridge that joins them, as if binding the two civilizations together. And suddenly there is a low rumble that shakes the earth, and directly ahead of them, beneath the design of the bridge, and almost touching the word conjoined that is inscribed above it, the silhouette of a door appears, emblazoned in the same light. A moment later it swings inward, opening into blackness.
Well,
Says Rorlain with a chuckle.
I suppose that we shall not sleep here tonight, or even find sleep for our weary eyes for a while yet.
That is true.
Syrian agrees.
We know not how long this gate shall remain open, nor even the reason that it opened. We had best take our chance while it is still ours.
After quickly gathering up their belongings, the 5 travelers, not without a moment's hesitation at stepping again into the darkness of the unknown, pass through the doorway into the caverns that lie beyond. After entering through the mysterious gate, they pause in a kind of antechamber, and here Rorlain lights a torch and holds it aloft. The flickering light of the torch falls upon the walls and the ceiling, and reveals something that they did not expect. Shining in the light of the fire, in the same way as the designs upon the cliff face had shined in the radiance of the moon, intricate works of art crawl along the walls, from floor to ceiling, etchings scored into the ancient stone and yet filled with some unknown substance or form that glistens blue-white in the light that falls upon it. And they are grateful for the luminosity of the fire, since it allows them to see and examine in detail the work of man that has taken the beauty of nature and elevated it. Eldarion notices immediately that this cavern is far different than those through which he has previously passed, whether that be the abode of the Eoten, the barrow of Serra Galaptes, or the fortress castle of the Lord of Mares. Clearly born first of all from forces far beyond the artifice of man, majestic both in size and in shape, with ceiling and walls carved of running water over ages, the cavern has also been touched by man, imbued with a beauty that seems not merely artistic but cultic, the highest source and goal of artistic inspiration and pursuit. The high, undulating ceiling presents a kind of natural architecture, full of splendor precisely in its organic contours, as if formed of the interplay of living stone and sounding space, or even of the passive earth and the womb-like shelteredness that it creates. Far different than the sense of mysterious uncertainty or even of suffocating terror found in the prior locations, this cavern does indeed speak of peace and security, of serenity and repose. And even beyond the glowing designs upon the walls, the cavern is not submerged in complete darkness, for shafts or openings in the stone break through from high above, winding through narrow crevices of rock that trace their way to the high shelves at the crest of the mountain slope. Currently such light is dim, hardly noticeable, in the nocturnal radiance of moon and stars, which in certain places can even be glimpsed winking through the narrow crevices. But during the daytime hours it shall, they expect, be enough to light their way. Yet for now they are in no rush either to make progress or to seek rest in sleep. Rather, they walk slowly forward, drinking in the intricate designs that greet them, the cavern unfolding chamber after chamber before them, all laced with beauty of nature and of art. Whatever ancient civilization gave birth to the carvings and designs found in the cavern was one filled with longing. That is the word that comes to Eldarion's mind, and he can find no word so adequate or so precise. As if emerging from the very rock are the figures of heaven and earth, expertly carved and filled with the same sinewy substance that shone in the radiance of the moon, now refracting, less brilliantly, and yet truly, the light of the torch. It is as though the designs on the cliff face were intended to show forth only in the rays of the moon, a secret to be found by few, while the designs within the caverns themselves await only the contemplating eye and receptive heart, and the light whereby man in darkness seeks to see, to show forth their face. The etchings of lifelike trees springing from the earth, almost as if captured in the very act of bursting from seed to shoot and shoot to sapling and sapling to full growth, line the walls, weaving in and out of the designs of mountains, masterfully worked into the natural contours of the cavern walls themselves, ridged and rugged from the creative hand that brought this underground sanctuary into existence. Men and women, too, stand aloft under the shade of the trees and the mountains, and among them stand other beings, the likes of which none of the travellers nor any persons living in this age have seen in the flesh. And yet the portrayal of such beings, greater in both height and splendour than the mortal kind among whom they walk, and needing no clothing, since dressed in glory and light, is clearly only a gesture, a feeble attempt to express in image and symbol a reality that far surpasses it. Other etchings there are as well, a great shining tree in the midst of a forest, a war of men against men, a rift split in the earth, and dragons and other creatures of darkness arising from the earth, as the company continues forward from the narrow entrance corridor into a wide and expansive cavern, whose ceiling rises 100 yards above them.
They are telling a story.
Elmarie remarks, looking around at the etchings with wonder.
They are telling the history of all of us,
Says Syrian.
though much of it we have forgotten.
I cannot make out all of it, but it clearly shows an early war, as well as the same creatures that threaten our land now.
Tiliana says.
Why, if they came forth so long ago, have they been dormant all this time?
A good question, but one to which I do not know the answer. From appearances, they were pushed back.
And these other beings, the shining ones?
The greatest of allies, I think.
Elmarie remarks.
Though perhaps it is more appropriate to speak of us being their allies than they being ours.
I think it is both.
Says Eldarion.
Our great task is to side with them, to choose their side in the great battle that assails us all. But it is nonetheless our battle, waged in our land, and they came to us in the flesh to help us in this conflict.
Are you talking about the Seven?
Rorlane asks.
I am. Though I am uncertain whether that is what these inscriptions mean or whether they intend something else.
Explains Eldarion.
In the heart of the lair of the Lord of Mares, I saw inscriptions of a different source and of a far different kind. These seem to me born of wonder and awe. Yes, a wonder that has passed through the flames of conflict and loss, but in this has not died but only deepened or risen again reborn. The inscriptions of the Lord of Mares, however, were saturated with one thing only: the arrogance to rule over others and to exert his power over all life, whether that be the life of man and beast, or the life of the abominations that he himself sought to fashion. His world was himself alone. I think that is why he seeks to rule even now over the minds of others, why he calls himself the Lord of Nightmares. If he can control our reality, then it becomes his domain, his sovereignty, and thus his glory.
But here we encounter something far different.
Elmarie continues, picking up on Eldarion's train of thought.
It shows that the primal attitude of man is wonder, and longing for another. In every etching, every line, every image, it is like they were searching for the face of the unseen, which cannot be captured in any images or words, but which is glimpsed in all of them.
Precisely.
Eldarion says.
But what about this here?
Diliana asks, directing the other's attention to an image that spans almost the entirety of a wall to their right.
It portrays something different, or at least an undercurrent in that of which you speak.
The etchings show two groups of people, men and women, whose backs are turned to one another, portrayed in movement, as if walking in opposite directions. The people on the left are turned toward a forest, and the people on the right toward a range of mountains. And between the two groups is the same rift that they have seen elsewhere, which indeed they have witnessed in person.
Peace gives way to warfare, and warfare gives way to separation, and separation to apathy, and apathy to forgetfulness.
Syrian remarks.
That is what I see etched into the lines before us. That is the ancient history of our people, of which little now is recalled.
An undercurrent.
Eldarion says.
It is as you said, Elmarie. There is wonder and longing written here, but here too there is something woven throughout that primal wonder. I have no better word for it than sorrow and loss.
Diliana shakes her head softly at all of this and says,
I am amazed at all of you. I too see what you see, and yet I would never be able to put it into words as you do. To me, all of this is nearly opaque, a puzzle to which I am missing the answer, or a riddle that I cannot solve. But when you speak, it is as though, while not solving the whole, you give me hints that help me along toward the answer.
Eldarion opens his mouth to reply, but is suddenly stopped by a cry from Rawlane, who takes a few long strides ahead and calls out,
Look! The chamber opens up ahead into one even wider, and daylight streams in from above.
Daylight?
Tiliana asks.
But we have walked hardly an hour, haven't we? It can't possibly be daylight yet.
It indeed seems that way,
Syrian remarks. The 5 companions press forward and pass through a high doorway, or opening into another chamber, which reveals a wide cavern whose ceiling is in large part open to the sky, its light trailing in through crevices of ancient stone from the very slopes of the mountains high above. Here the glowing inscriptions cease, and instead they find themselves standing before a wide lake of dark blue water, glistening in the light falling from above, and reflecting both the golden radiance of the sun and the rocky face of the cavern ceiling. The angle of the sun's light and its color indicate that it is already a good 2 hours after sunrise. They stop here, standing unmoving, the interplay of light, water, and stone taking their breath away in its beauty. And it is true, the night has passed in what seems to be hardly more than the blink of an eye.
It is not just my perception, correct?
Eldarion asks.
It felt to all of us that we hardly entered these caverns at most, but an hour ago.
They all nod or murmur in agreement.
Then what has happened?
I do not think the night has shortened.
Says Elmarie.
Rather, I think that there is something special about this place, and the time has passed without us being aware of it. While looking at the inscriptions on the walls, I felt, how can I express it? I felt a kind of timelessness. It was almost like I could have stood there for days, drinking in the beauty and the meaning, and never exhausting it.
I agree,
Adds Tiliana.
and I feel not tired by such contemplation, but rather invigorated, more than if I had slept the entirety of the night, rather than standing on hard stone with my head raised and my eyes roaming about me.
Uncanny indeed.
Sighs Rawlane, scratching his forehead thoughtfully and lowering his torch a bit, since it is hardly necessary any longer.
It makes me almost uncomfortable, since I know not what to make of it, and yet I feel no ill intent, no malevolent presence.
Quite the opposite?
Syrian proffers.
Yes, exactly.
After a few moments longer, as the light of the sun tilts ever higher and shines with fuller face upon the water below, the travellers continue around the lake, staying close to the shore and navigating across the rough stone floor. There appears to be only one other passage from this cavern besides the one through which they entered, and they exit through it now. After following a straight passage, long and narrow in comparison with the wider chambers through which they have previously passed, they come at last to another wide space which opens out before them. The walls of the passage fall away, as if in an instant, and they step forward into a room with walls and ceiling of rippled stone, carved through ages of running water, with an opening at the highest apex at the center of the chamber, allowing sunlight to stream forth in abundance from above, bathing all that is below. And in the very heart of this glow, radiant and glistening like pure white snow in the mountains, and yet made instead of crystalline stone, is the statue of a man. Drawing near to the statue, they see that the figure depicted is a king, with crown upon his noble brow and sword in his hands, the wide blade planted, as if in triumph and yet also in peace and guardianship, into the stone at his feet. Upon his chest is a cuirass, intricately designed, and under this, hanging almost to his knees, a shirt of mail with small and tight rings, the craftsmanship of which must have taken great care and time in equal measure. On his shoulders are pauldrons of elegant shape, and on his arms, too, the armament fitting for each part terminating in thick-knuckled gauntlets covered even to the tips of the fingers. But as the gaze is drawn to the face of the king, noble and serene, stern and yet gentle, something else immediately draws the attention of the eyes. 3 scars line his left cheek from chin to nose.
It looks as in the illustration from the book.
Tiliana remarks, turning to Eldarion.
Drea first spoke of it, of this scarred king, I mean. The statue and the illustration, they speak of the same legend.
Or of the same historical figure.
Rawlane adds,
It may well be that this man has lived in ages long past and has continued to live now in legend as much as in history.
I agree with this.
Eldarion says as he reaches into his pack and draws forth a sheet of paper folded in half. He unfolds it and inspects the image of the heavily armoured king drawn upon it, very much like the statue that now stands before them.
She gave the illustration to you?
Syrian asks, surprised.
Indeed. I tried to prevent her, but she insisted, saying that she hoped it would be for me an encouragement, for though I be not the king, the resemblance could be both a sign and a call of what I am meant to serve. Those were her words, at least.
But why did you say that you agree with Rawlane?
Elmarie asks,
What makes you believe that this man lived in ages past, and is not a hope or legend for the future?
There are a number of indications.
replies Eldarion.
The inscription on the outside of these caverns, for example, is one. I believe the location of this statue another. This king was likely one who joined together these 2 civilizations in peace and harmony, even if in after years, following upon his death, they were severed once again.
He pauses for a moment, comparing the illustration in his hands with the light-bathed statue before him.
The final indication, one which cannot be seen in this small drawing, but which is obvious upon the sculpture. Rawlane, can you see it?
Yes.
His friend answers.
The design upon his cuirass is the same as was upon the amulet that opened the door to the barrow of Sarah Galaptes.
That very amulet was found upon the breast of the ancient ruler in his entombment.
Eldarion concludes.
I believe that Sarah Galaptes was the scarred king,